بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم لك الحمد على كل نعمة أنعمت بها علينا، فنعمك سبحانك لا تعد ولا تحصى. ثم الصلاة والسلام على محمد نبيك الذي أرسلته رحمة للعالمين، وعلى آله الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of here and the hereafter. O Lord, we praise you for all the blessings that you have granted us, as these blessings have no limit and cannot be counted. We convey our greeting and salutation to the Holy Prophet of Islam, the one that you commissioned to be the blessing for the whole world and his pure progenies. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the fifth program of Muharram 2020 at the Islamic Center of America. سئل الإمام أمير المؤمنين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه: يا علي، العدل أفضل أم الجود؟ فقال عليه السلام: العدل، لأن العدل يضع الأمور مواضعها، والجود يخرجها من جهتها. والعدل سائس عام، والجود عارض خاص. One of the Amir al-Mu'mineen's disciple asked him a question: Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, which one has a higher ranking or superior, philanthropy, jude, or justice? Imam responded that for two reasons, adl and justice has a higher ranking and superior than jude and philanthropy. Justice puts things in their proper place, while generosity directs them from their natural direction. Justice is general caretaker, while generosity is a particular reliever. As usual, we start with a brief recap of the point or the specific topic we addressed last night. The focal point of our discussion was Saqifa, a place in which, after the demise of the Holy Prophet, within very short time, as the burial rites were being conducted in the house of Fatima sallallahu alaiha, a group of Ansar and then Muhajirun came with them, got together to discuss their affair, or the affair of the leadership after the demise of the Holy Prophet. The affair of Saqifa has not been addressed by most historians because it has ramification if they were to address it correctly. And the brief account of Saqifa really does not give the right image or picture of Saqifa. I pointed out that to understand how toxic this, call it coup d'etat or revolt or whatever, we really need to understand what was it what was its outcome with regard to one or two frame of reference that to us it was critical issue. And number one on the list, it was that the affairs of Saqifa, the way it was conducted, it prevented the somehow smooth transition of power after the death of the Holy Prophet to the rightly guided individual that the Holy Prophet had already appointed. And that makes it extremely critical. This orderly transition was prevented. Not only that, the affair of Saqifa opened the wound of tribe and Qabila mentality, the Jahiliyyah mindset, division within the community, because those of you who were present last night, I spoke about this. When the Muhajirun counterattacked with regard to the Ansar's proclamation that because we opened the city, we have the right to the leadership after the demise of the Holy Prophet. The claim of the Muhajirun, which Abu Bakr was the spokesperson, was that no, we have the right because we are the close relatives and from the same tribe. Once Abu Bakr realized that this appeal to the sense of Quraysh and the tribe of the Holy Prophet is not going to wash with Ansar because they are adamant that they have the right because they opened the city to the Holy Prophet and Muhajirun, the immigrant, then the strategy used was the strategy of the old strategy with the tribal and clan mentality, setting one group against the other. So he would turn to the Aus and says, how can you vote for Khazraj? Don't you remember what Khazraj did to your tribe? And he would go to the Khazraj and say, how can you vote for Aus when Aus did this and that to your ancestors? This tribal mindset that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeatedly in the Holy Quran under the guidance of the Holy Prophet made every effort to eradicate and replace it with something else. This notion of tribal mentality to be removed, unfortunately open when the language used in the whole affair is going to be tribal and based on sectarian, not religious, but tribal sectarianism, created a conduit for future sedition in Islam. Anybody that didn't want something happen, we organize a group and my tribe supporting me against another tribe, as we saw happen later on. The members of the so-called, what I call them, the junta, the winning party, emerged from this. This is another crisis that we had to deal with. Emerged from this experience thinking that the political leadership of the community is their God-given right. And they can play with it the way they want. The issue becomes clear. Abu Bakr claims that he was elected because of ijma'. Now, remember, this kind of narrative is somehow constructed to sanitize what happened in the past. If claim of ijma' is being presented, well, Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salamu alayhi countered and said, where is that ijma'? If a huge number of the closest disciples of the Holy Prophet were not present. We see that this concept of ijma' as a justification for Khilafah of Abu Bakr is shelved and marginalized and set aside and goes to what we call, the Shia call nas, a clear verbal command, who's going to be after me? Abu Bakr appoints Umar. And when Umar comes to power, before his death, before he constructs this Shura issue that hopefully one day we talk about it, he clearly says, if Abu Ubaid al-Jarrah was present, I would not have given it to anybody else. But who was Abu Ubaid al-Jarrah? Part of the trio, the team in Saqifa. Abu Bakr, Umar, and Abu Ubaid al-Jarrah. Clearly indicating that there was a plan, and I mean, there is ample literature about this. But the fact that these people came out thinking that somehow political leadership is their God-given right, and they can play with it the way they want, this became the whole cause of the problem, particularly during the second Khalif, and especially during the third Khalif. During the third Khalif, nepotism reached the height. And every time you have Uthman beating up Abu Dhar, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and few others. Why? Because they criticized his so-called lifestyle and wasting of Baytul Mal. His answer, Baytul Mal is ours, mine. I can do with it whatever I want. That was the outcome of Saqifa. And I said that we really need, because it is such a critical and such a destructive event and incident, all of us, irrespective of where we locate ourselves as far as theological position, we really need to understand this. I totally agree with Baqir Sharif al-Qurashi that says in his book, دراسة موضوعية لأخطر حادث في تاريخ الإسلام السياسي. The most dangerous event in the political history of Islam. This is extremely critical for us to understand as a consequence of Saqifa and how it transpired to dictate and dominate the discourse of the early history. Unfortunately, again, not only historians, they have somehow tried not to address it. Even when they want to address it, they have glossed over, and they have distorted, they have presented partial facts about the whole incident. And as a consequence, when people read the book, historical book, they really have no clue exactly what happened. Even individuals that are in charge in Medina, when we talk to them, we've been there to talk to them about Saqifa, they have very superficial knowledge of Saqifa, apart from one or two of them. Now, if we want to return to this question that Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salamu alayhi was asked, I think it's in Nahj al-Balagha, Hikmah 437, around the end of Nahj al-Balagha. Now, let us start by reflecting a little bit about the concept of justice. A very nice word. Like the sense of peace and nostalgia for peace, sense of desire for beauty and everything else, it appears that the sense of justice and the quest for its realization have been kneaded into the nature of human being. You ask anyone, irrespective of where they come from, their political, religious, theology, or anything else, would you like justice? Do you support justice? Immediately they agree. It seems as if justice, we are wired for this understanding or support of justice. Humans, in their substance, in their essence, this notion of justice exists. Now, human soul, in their depth, they understand the sense of justice. But when it comes because of that inherent nature, we have apostle, messengers of Islam, and sages from all the religious community. They talk about justice and peace. And irrespective of how we define it, This notion, a sense of justice, is something desirable. The problem is when it comes to the application. Yet, when it comes to understanding and application, we have a fundamental crisis in clearly defining exactly what justice is in all communities. I remember, if you go back to the history of Christianity, there is a concept that is used for justifying war. It's something that Augustine constructed. It's called the just war theory. During the 2003 war with Iraq, the government appealed to just war theory in justification for attacking another country. And when we ask, what is this justice within the just war theory, everybody had different understanding and different definition of it. We reached the point that it was exactly as it was defined in the early history of Islam during Saqifa. Whatever the government says is just. In that case, I remember there was a South Korean lawyer that was supporting not only torture by the Bush administration, but the concept of justice, whatever the president wants, that becomes just. So, yes, we have the desire within us for justice and the realization of justice. But when it comes to its meaning and how do we apply it in our life in the formal plane, it's problematic because there are different understanding and different definition. There is a book called Whose Justice by, I think, McIntyre, the author. Justice, and look at the history of justice. Whose justice is it? It's just from a religious point of view, from a moral point of view, from Western point of view, from Eastern point of view, etc., etc. Now, if we were to go back to this short response, somebody comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen. From our point of view, Muslims, I don't think anyone doubts that the central aim of Quran is the establishment of a viable social order that is just and seeks justice. We have a number of verses in the Holy Quran outlining this. One of them in Surah Al-Hadid, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانَ لِيَقُومُ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. The ultimate goal and the aim of proclamation and messengers being sent to guide humanity is the establishment of justice on earth, where people work together to establish such a notion or such a concept. And if you go to any Mu'jam Mufaharas lil-Quran and look for various words, qist, adl, dhulm, and all these, you will see them, they are compared and contrasted with justice, haqq, batil, etc. Now, with these in mind, if we go back to the question that was posed for Amir al-Mu'mineen to respond, he is asked, when it comes to two noble character of human being, which one is superior and higher rank? Justice or generosity? Or another word, philanthropy? Technically, if I were to be asked, through my limited knowledge, I immediately would opt for generosity and philanthropy. But Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salamu alayhi, farsightedness turns the answer, turns the table around and presents it into a different presented in a different way. He says, for two reasons, adl and justice is superior. Number one, justice puts things into proper perspective, stabilizes the social structure within the community. And generosity or philanthropy is just diverts them into an unnatural direction. Let's look at this. For you to be able to be generous and philanthropic, to put your hand into your pocket and turn out a little bit of pittance to give to the poor and the needy, the social and the economic structure of the society must have become dysfunctional that you have to give that little bit of extra to these individuals. Otherwise, if adl and justice prevailed, the poor and the needy would not exist in the first place for you to become generous. That's what Amir al-Mu'mineen is pointing to. Within the social structure, for you to give little bit of money to the poor and the needy is because you have removed وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ. Quran says, if the portion that belongs to the sa'il of mahrum is given, then you don't need to make extra step. We always need extra generosity and generous and philanthropic individuals within the society to give beyond what is needed. But Imam says, adl stabilizes the society, gives everyone their due. And if that is done, then there is no need for some kind of generosity, for extra money to be given or services to be given to the poor and the needy. Number one. Number two, justice is general caretaker. The scope of justice is wide, covers everyone, while generosity is a particular reliever to an individual. You see a poor person and the needy, sa'il, mahroom, you take a little bit of money and you give it to this individual. What about the rest of the society? The leader of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, when he was asked after the crisis, at least on the paper, came to an end, and somehow steps were taken towards reconciliation, he focused on the notion of poverty within South African community. He said, poverty and destitution is not inherently part and parcel of a society. It is created, it is constructed. Why? Because the social, justice doesn't exist within the society. That's exactly, it says, first one, adl stabilizes the community, gives everyone their right and their due. Then there is no need for anybody else to make extra effort to give to an individual. And number two, the scope of justice is wide, while the scope of generosity is singular. You just give it to one person which is needy, or one family which is needy. But justice gives it to everyone, irrespective whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim. Amir al-Mu'mineen criticizes people of Kufa on his way to Safin, when he sees an old Christian man sitting on the side of the street and begging. He stops. He says, what is he doing here at his age? They said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's a Christian. He said, so what? He's a human being. You robbed him of his youth, and now when he's destitute, you left him for him to rot? Where is that justice that we want? And I cited another thing, when it comes to even individualistic feeling. You cannot go to sleep when your neighbors, there are individuals that they don't have enough to fill up their stomach. This is what he told his wali and governor of Basra. Dismisses him because he went to a rich man's house for the month of Ramadan to eat a little bit of food. He said, how could you? Where is your sense of justice, sympathy, empathy with the poor and the needy? How can you go and fill your stomach up when within the neighborhood there are those that don't remember when was the last time that they had full stomach? We want to learn something from Ashura. Let's learn this point here. When Ali says the sense of justice, scope of it is wide. If you do give your dues to the poor and the needy, there is no reason for anyone to be generous and philanthropic. What does that mean? The portion which is theirs, khums, zakat, sadaqat, and everything else, if we give it to the poor, we don't need to make a check for $50 to give to a single mother that comes to the center desperately in need of assistance. This is the reality. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that because of these, he thinks about the social structure, not the benefit towards an individual. Al-adlu afdal am al-jud. Responds al-adl. لأن العدل يضع الأمور مواضعها والجود يخرجها من جهتها. One puts everything into perspective, gives the right of everyone their dues, give to everyone their dues, and the other one makes a special donation for a particular case. And naturally, adl is better for Amir al-Mu'mineen. Now, and socially, this is critical. If we really want a stable community, we have to understand that without justice, there is no peace, there is no stability, there is no community. Because there is a hadith from the Holy Prophet, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Everyone, there is a reciprocal relationship between individuals. من أصبح ولم يهتم بأمور المسلمين فليس بمسلم. We participate in these majalis, we listen to these ahadith, and then we go home as if nothing has happened. Where is our sense of empathy towards other Muslims? And unfortunately, when we come towards justice, what Amir al-Mu'mineen talks about balanced social structure, justice was one of the victims of Saqifa. Why? Because as soon as what we have, the new administration stabilized itself, because they started with the tribal mindset came to dictate their affairs and the way they dealt with people. Colonialism, favoritism, Arab, Ajam, white, green, everything else came to dictate the narrative. When you have, inshallah, we discuss this a little bit tomorrow night. When you have the second Khalif gives order that Arabs have to be superior than non-Arabs in receiving their share from Baytul Mal. And within the Arabs, Bani Hashim, because they zipped their mouth and they didn't say anything, they receive a better share than the others. That's the beginning of the deviation. That started from Saqifa. So when we say that Saqifa was the most dangerous and toxic event, that people like Tijani and even what we call a Christian or Western mindset Orientalist, in his little bit of impartial analysis, writes a book, The Succession to Muhammad, Wilfred Medlong, and then the conclusion that he reaches is exactly the same thing. That Saqifa opened the door to crisis after crisis in the future. That in my take, still we are going through it and suffering. Why? Because society lost its sense of balance. The Holy Prophet ﷺ goes to Medina and organizes a concept, what we call the Constitution of Medina, bringing everyone within Medina as a sense of ummah and brotherhood and sisterhood. Even Jews of Medina, under the constitution, became part of Ummah. And if they were poor, Baytul Mal would provide for them. Then one night he goes to Masjid al-Nabi. There is a Dakkah. There was a Dakkah in the past that they have removed it now. It was a place where the poor and the needy every night would come and sit down and until the mosque was constructed, remain in the mosque. So the Holy Prophet would come just to check to see who's there, because during that time people would be coming from Mecca and other places to Medina. He saw the richest man of Medina sitting there with among the Muhajirin. He said, Ya Fulan, what are you doing here? He said, Ya Rasulullah, you said that Muhajirin and others that are coming to Medina are our brothers and sisters. We have to share our wealth with them. I have a big house, and I have divided these rooms into quarters, and every quarter I have given it to a family of immigrants that came to Medina. I took the smallest room for myself. Shift in consciousness is here. There is not enough room for myself to be in that room, so I have left my wife and my children into that room. I have come to the mosque. No wonder Ali later on says, with this kind of sense of brotherhood and sisterhood and determination, we were able to turn the power of enemy around. Now suddenly, there is no sense of brotherhood and sisterhood. It's tribe mentality. My tribe better than anybody else's. Inshallah, tomorrow night we will start with the beginning of this economic dysfunctionality that becomes the reason why we have people coming from around the Muslim world to attack the third Khalif because of his extravagant lifestyle. And then that opens another door for assassination of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein and everything else. But please go and read the list of books, at least pick one of them, and read about Saqifa. Once you understand the dynamics and the spirit that dictated that gathering, and you realize that it is not far off if we say that the beginning of all the crises that the Muslim community had to go through starts from Saqifa. Thank you very much. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep guiding us to the right path, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.